Okay, so today I am going to demonstrate this new device I got. After doing a lot of research for a source calibrator, a voltage current calibrator, this is the one I bought. $135 with free shipping. There was a little for tax, but I can't remember what it was. Bought it off eBay through Zorro. And I'll tell you the good and bad about this. Regardless of whatever I say bad about this, I would still buy it. I'm just pointing out some of the weak things about this. First of all are the cables, or the test wires. I read on a review on Amazon that the placement for this adjustment button is very bad. And the wires that came with this are just some cheapos that have a pretty big 90-degree buttress there. And when you use these, it's very hard to turn that knob. And plus, it didn't come with any alligator clips or anything on the ends. They did have some protective cover, so just the needle ends were poking out. But so don't buy it for those. And also, I bought this one because I didn't want another multimeter. I got a dozen meters. Matter of fact, I just ordered another one. All I wanted was a source, millivolt source, and I wanted a microampere source, but I got a milliampere source, which you can read microamperes to a certain extent. You know, the 0.50 is 500 microamperes, but this, because it only goes like 0.50, you don't know what the third one is, so you can't really be exact on it. But the millivolt source is great because it goes up to 200. All of these other $300, $400 ones, $500 ones, even some of these $2,000 ones only went up to 100 millivolts. And this one goes up to 200 millivolts. And I can take a meter, a Hickok meter, that's what I'm mainly going to use this for, and take the microamperes, apply Ohm's law to it, and I can bring it out to millivolts. So I can test the meters through millivolts rather than microamperes, and I can test it with microamperes to a certain extent. Alright, so another weak part. So anyways, I put these Klein Tools cables on it, test wires, test leads, that have these screw-on alligator clips. So they're nice and tight, and this is what I'm going to use for this. So I've upgraded the test leads as it is. Came with this case, pretty cheap, but it's a case, it works. Came with some very basic directions. It really doesn't tell you a lot. You know, it gives you the specs. And adjustable from negative 199.9 millivolts to positive 199.9 millivolts DCV source. Drives loads up to 500 ohms. Adjustable 0 to 24 milliampere source. And the good thing about that, also has 0 to 24, then it has 0 to 19.9, which gives you the 0 decimal and 2 more zeros. So you can read out the microamperes fairly easily. And it runs off a 9-volt battery. It's another thing I didn't like about this. The 9-volt battery, when you plug it in, it uses the old style clip. You know, the negative and positive, and has the wires coming to it and plugs onto it. I've had problems in the past with some devices getting those apart without ruining the clip it plugs into. The newer style ones come with a, you open it up and just put the 9-volt battery in there. It doesn't clip on to anything. And it's easy to take in and out. Very simple. And it says in the directions, remove screw. Well, it's not a screw, it's 2 screws. So I loosened both these screws up, and I could easily get this part up, but this part here, I had to get a little screwdriver and pry up. It sort of locks in there. So you got to be careful about that. Again, it's not going to stop me from buying this because it's $135. Okay, what else? And you also have you can measure and power milliampere source with this. But again, I got this for the microampere source, the millivolt source. And what's this one? Is this microampere measure? Yeah, so it does work as a meter as well to measure microamperes. Has a sticker on here, www.readinstruments.com, and I could not find any label on here where this was made. And I'm having a feeling there's this black, really nice tape, it almost matches right in. I'm going to take that off, and I bet you it says made in China. Because I don't see made in USA. I see nothing in the instruction booklet where this is made. It comes in English and French. Not a whole lot in this book. And for example, when you turn this on, let's go to millivolt as a source. You can, oh, I'm at minus. You can bring it up to whatever you want to measure, turning this knob. Guess you can't turn it real fast, we're still at minus. And you know, someone complained on Amazon about the knob placement. I agree. But I am not going to complain about a 200 millivolt source just because the knob's sort of hard to turn. So this will go up to 299. So there's your millivolt source. Real simple. And later on I'll show you some examples testing some of these meters. Now here's the problem with the microampere source. It goes to zero. You don't know what it's at. So I took this 350 milliampere, and I plugged it into this, and I was able to set the milliampere source using the milliampere meter at 350 or 35. I can't remember what this is. It has a microampere scale on it, which is incorrect. So you don't know on the microamp. You can't adjust this to anything. It just sits at zero until you put it on something. Let's go for an example. Let's see what this is actually. It's buried. So we're going to have to bring this down. Well, we're at 18 microamperes. What the hell? Oh, this 3.5 microamperes? What was this meter? There we go. Yep, it was 3.5 microamperes. Which, amazingly, at 3.5 microamperes, 3.51, this meter reads exactly full scale. It was 3.5 microamperes meter. Right on the money here. So you can't adjust it microamperely. I guess you can swing it back on the millivolts. Let's see what it does on the millivolts on this meter. Oh, we're at negative 165 millivolts. So the meter's going backwards. So 3.5 milliamperes is minus 165 millivolts. If you can remember that or write it down, you'll be able to adjust this if you just go to minus 165 millivolts. So anyways, you got to be careful when you hook this up to a meter on the milliampere and know where it's at. So anyways, I'm going to make this video in two parts because I can only show you so much. But you know, other than you know, this knob sort of being a pain in the ass. The leads they give you work, but they don't have any alligator clips and they're sort of too big. It's really hard to move that knob. The 9-volt battery, you have to plug it into those old style clips. The battery compartment was hard to open. The milliampere scale has 2 adjustments on it and only goes out 2 numbers, so 0.00, so 3.51 or whatever. If you go from the 0 to 19.99, over 24 it goes 24.0 or 22.0. You only have one, I guess it's called a, I don't know, it has 3 digits. You can either use 2 in the front or 1 in the front out of the 3. It has a light, this lights up, it's really nice. So as a source for $135, looking at all the ones I looked at, this was a good deal. It works. You don't know where the milliamperes are as a source until you do some finagling to try to figure it out with the millivolts, I guess. 3.5 milliamperes is negative 165 millivolts. Because again, when you put on the millivolts, or milliamperes, oh, it's still at 3.5. How do you like that? So it kept the adjustment, which is nice. So the millivolt's going to be minus 165. But if this isn't hooked up to anything, you don't know where you're at on that. But you can adjust it on the millivolts. So you probably want to go, if you're going to hook it up to a microamp, or excuse me, I keep seeing microamperes on this meter, milliampere meter, or a milliampere as a source, you got to know where you're at on this. So I guess you probably should just go off the scale. I think it goes to, this will go to minus 199. Okay, so if you start there, then go to the milliamperes. Let's see what we get on this. Should be 0.38. There is a minimum milliamperes on here. What's scale? We'll go to that one. Goes out to 0.38, which is 380 microamperes. So let's see. I'm in the French section. Adjustable is 0 to 24 milliamperes. On 0.38. So let's go to 0.50. Which should be 500 microamperes. Damn it. A little sensitive here. And it's hard to adjust this little knob. But again, I'm not complaining. I'm just noting. Come on, where's the 8? There it is, 8.5. Okay, or excuse me, 0.50. That should be 500 microamperes. Now this isn't a 500 microampere meter, even though it's supposed to be. I had it measured as a 666 microampere meter, and according to this, as a source, it's 664. So let's go. This should not register full scale. That should be 500 microamperes. And it doesn't register to full scale. So it's 0.50, which is right. So again, I can measure microamperes using this. I measured it at 666 on my other source. Let's see what, I think this came to 6.4. Little touchy down here on the lower numbers. Okay, I got 6.2. It's a little bit over full scale, 620 microamperes full scale. So, 40 microamperes off according to my other source. Let's go to millivolts. And we're back there, and a meter buried the other way. We're still on the negative side on the millivolts. Let's go to microamperes. Back to right there on the microamperes. But at least on the millivolts, so a 500 microampere meter at 233 ohms should read 116.5 millivolts full scale. Which is nice about this, because I've seen a lot of people that work with Hickok meters and they only can measure half scale. They're looking for the line at half scale because their device only goes up to 100. And this one goes up to 200. And to read full scale, even on the 6000A, full scale on the meter is 106.5 millivolts. So this one I can read full scale on all the meters for the Hickok tube testers anyways. So let's disconnect this. Let's go to 116.5, which will not read full scale on this meter because it's a 600 and some odd microamperes meter. Come on, come on, come on. Finally in the positives. Pain in the ass. Wish they had like a little screwdriver connection in there or something, or a knob so I could just stick a screwdriver in it and turn it. So what am I looking for again? 116.5 millivolts should be full scale. So once I get this set to 116.5, I will put it on the bad meter, the 660 some odd back a little bit. Boy, oh boy. Boy, oh boy. It's got to be patient with it. All right. Okay, 116.5. Let's go with it on the Hickok meter. This should be about same thing as 500 microamperes, 3/4 of the way. It comes up to the 2500. All right. Same exact thing as 500 microamperes, 116.5 millivolts. So let's get this meter out of the way, which is to calibrate my milliamperes. And let's go with the other Hickok meter that I know is exactly 500 microamperes and measure it at 116.5 millivolts, which should bring this meter to full scale. Alright, let's see what we get here. It's over. This one's reading over. Let's see how much over. So I'm getting full scale here at 111.4.3. So even though, oh boy, I can't put this on milliamperes now because I'm going to have to readjust this all the way back down to 0. So this should read at full scale according to Ohm's law at 500 UA, which this one tests out at, and 233. Oh, this has a little bit more ohms in it though. Forgot, this is like a 234 ohm. 116.5 millivolts should be full scale. It's reading full scale here at 111. So half scale on the line should be 58.25. Let's see where we come to on the line for this. 58.25. Going to be close, I'll tell you that. Boy, it makes some big jumps sometimes. Let's go with 58 and see where we end up, or in that area. So 57.9, 58, it's a little bit over half scale here. So, could Ohm's law be wrong? 500 microamperes, this was reading at full scale 500 microamperes. 500 microamperes at 233 ohms should be 116.5 millivolts, unless I made some kind of miscalculation. You know what? I think I did. No. And half scale should be 58.25 for the line. Below 58. .5. Anyways, there it is, millivolts. I don't know if you can see where the needle is on that. It's above the line. 58.4, 58, 50, okay, 58. It's still above the line. So again, another Hickok meter, which I have, like I said, even though this reader reads perfectly 500 mic, and it reads perfectly on the line at half that microamperes, 250. According to this source here, the read source, it is off. So, which is typical of all Hickok meters. Let's go to the meter I built and see where this one comes up to. This one has a few extra ohms on it. I didn't do the calculations with the 3 extra ohms. I'm just going to use the regular 233 ohm calculation I made for Ohm's law. At 58 millivolts, this should read half scale. Let's see if it does, or close to half scale. I'm using alligator clips to alligator clips. Just now look at that. There you go. See what a difference a new meter makes? Right at half scale at 57.9. So let's go to 116.5, because this is real close at 5800 at the line. 58.3, it's a little over the line. It's so hard to get this. So 58.3, just at the line, which is great. See, that's the difference between a new meter and a Hickok meter. Although this one tests right at 500 microamperes, and the line tests right, when I put it on a millivolt source, it tests wrong according to Ohm's law. This meter here, the brand new meter I made for this particular 533A or 600A, It's testing perfect. Let's see what 116.5 comes to here. We get full scale or not. Boy, this is so nice. I don't have to use another meter to check what it is on my source. I can just bring this up. It's a little bit of a pain in the ass, but it's so nice to have this in front of me without having to get another meter out and measure what I'm actually getting before I put it on the meter. So let's go 116.5. 111, we're at full scale. So we're a little over full scale at 113. So it's close to this meter here. But this one measures line way better than this meter. So we're at 113 there. It's 116.5. Could be there's a little bit of a change because this one is like a 236 ohm. 113, we're definitely at full scale, a little bit over full scale. Let's go back. Let's knock it down to full scale. Okay, so it's 113 full scale, which is a lot closer than this other. Well, 111 wasn't bad, but this one was definitely off at half on the line, which should be 58.25. I can't remember what the hell it was. I'd have to watch the video back. But anyways, I'm just checking out this Reed R8800. So if you can get by, you know, be ready to buy some different leads for this. I ordered some other ones that just have clips on the end, clip leads. All these ones work pretty good. It gives me a little bit of room. I can move the leads around and it's not hitting that knob like the leads that came with it. I'd be prepared to buy new leads, which you probably already have some that will work. It's just a banana club, or banana club, yeah. But anyways, this meter has a light on it. You can light it up. Works really nice. The milliamperes, you can go from 2 in the front and 1 on the end, or 2 on the end and 1 on the front of the milliamperes. Millivolt source up to 200. I can't stress how important that was to me and how I couldn't find that on any other source calibrator I was looking at. I would have liked to have got a microampere source, which I'm looking, some guy in China is making one handmade, and I ordered one, but he couldn't ship it. He says because of the coronavirus they can't ship out of Hong Kong, but you know, I don't believe that. So I don't know where this particular unit was made. I'm thinking it's going to be underneath this piece of black tape back here, and I'm going to take it off. I don't know why they have it on here. All right. It does not say made in China. It says F10A 250 volt. I don't know why they put that there. Okay, I'll put it back. I really expected this to say made in China. I see no indication on this where this is made. Nowhere. Not in the book, not on this. Maybe it's underneath this. I'll just leave this here. But I highly recommend this as a source. That's what I bought it for. I got plenty of meters, multimeters to measure with. Although you can measure milliamperes here, you can also power and measure milliamperes on a loop with this particular function here. Haven't used that one yet. Haven't measured milliamperes yet. I basically just use this as a source for milliamperes and millivolts. And the milliampere, you cannot adjust like you can the millivolts. The milliampere has to be hooked up to something to adjust it. So there's 112.9 millivolts where I left it. Brings this meter to full scale. On the milliamperes, we're minus 0.00. You have no idea until you hook it up to something. So that can be dangerous. That's why I have that milliampere meter, 3.5 milliampere meter. I don't care if it swings all over the place, it cracks apart, blows up, don't give a shit. So if I don't know where I'm at, or if I have to go here and go to minus 116 or whatever it was to know that I'm low on the milliamperes, 3.5 milliamperes is negative 116 or something like that. I can't remember what it was. But you can also take on the millivolt source, you can go past the negative 199, and you know when you go to the milliamperes, you're going to be at 0. But it's a pain in the ass to move this little knob. Wish they would have put a little slot in there so I could use a screwdriver, but I'm really not complaining. I'm just pointing out some of the pain in the ass things about this particular device. But $135 delivered from eBay, from Zorro. Nice little unit as a source for millivolts, 200 millivolts. Go look, if you're looking for a source meter, source calibrator, and you're looking at the millivolts, go look at the Fluke. Go look at those $3,000 ones, the $500 ones. The millivolts only go to 100. That extra 100 millivolts is a big difference to me. I could care less if this measures anything. I got meters to do that, although I do have that loop here, and it can power 12 volts. And the milliampere meter you can use as a microampere meter as well, because you can go 0.00, so you can measure like 0.50 is 500, 0.10 is 100 microamperes, 0.28 is 280 microamperes. You may not be, could be 0.288 or 289. You know, you might be up to 0.09 microamperes away, but it still will work as a microampere source up to 1 milliampere. So you can go up to 99, which would be 990 microamperes. So it works okay for that, not great, but you know, if you want a microampere source, you don't have to hook up a separate meter to figure it out. I like this thing. I am going to continually check meters using Ohm's law, taking the microamperes and converting that into millivolts. As you saw, this one checked exactly half scale at, what was it, 58.25 millivolts, which it should be. That should be halfway up the meter. Although it checked out a little bit weak on the end at 113 millivolts, and when it should be 116.5, but this does have 3 extra ohms on it, and it might be affecting the top end of that. I don't know. Don't know. All I know, this is a good, nice meter. Even the one that's a good meter for the Hickok that checks at exactly 500 microamperes, half scale at 58.25 millivolts, I think it was over. So I don't know. Anyways, I highly recommend this Reed R8800. For one thing, the price of this, $135. You're not going to go wrong. It's pretty nice. Just, you know, it has 2 screws for the battery compartment, not one. And this screw here was loose, but I still couldn't get this up. There was nothing to grab it. I stuck a little screwdriver in here and pry it up. It also has the old style clip for the 9-volt battery. Don't like that, but it works. As long as I can change the batteries, I don't care. Pain in the ass right here. You know, there's old style Reed instruments, an R8900 or 8801 or something like that, that look a little bit nicer, but this one I think is more powerful, does a better job. Don't know where it was made. Doesn't say made in China anywhere. Usually if something's made in China, it's marked all over hell made in China. And if something's made in the USA, it usually says made in the USA. Maximum count, 1999. Operating temperature. Calibrate measures process signals, provides a precise current and DC millivolt source, able to power or measure a two-wire current loop, provides the quality and accuracy of a handheld calibrator. Alright, well, hope you learned something. All I know is if you're looking to buy something like that as a millivolt, milliampere source, you might want to look into one of these. You're not going to beat the price. And not only is it, I don't know where it's made, but it comes from the United States. You get it in a couple days, 135 bucks. Be honest with you, there's not one Chinese out there that goes up to 200 millivolts that I saw. Even for 500 bucks. Even the flukes I look at, $2,000 and $3,000 flukes only went up to 100 millivolts. I'd get these while it's available. If I had unlimited funds, I'd buy a dozen of these things and give them to my friends. Highly recommend the Reed R8800.